Let's meeting to order, Topsham Select Board from the from the Donald A. Russell Meeting Room, on September 19, 2024. Please rise to pledge allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we call the roll, please.
Roland Tufts.
Here.
Marie Brilliant. And
Yes.
has she been excused?
Yes.
Okay, she's been excused. Ann Callahan. Here. Brian Holmes.
Here.
Matt Nixon.
Present.
Thank you.
A Maine DOT contractor is going to begin the rehabilitation of the Route 201 Catanates River Bridge on Monday, September 23rd. It's expected to be completed by August 29th, 2025. MDOT's contractor that has been doing the work on 196 in front of the Topsham Fair Mall has temporarily suspended work while they finish another MDOT project. So that's why the past week you haven't seen much progress. They're supposed to be back by the end of the month and then get it paved, and we'll be done with all the sharp edges around the brakes and things. Early person voting is going to start on October 7th here in the Don Russell Meeting Room. Tax bills have gone out. Please contact us if you were expecting one but didn't receive it. The owner of the property as of April 1st, 2024 is the person who's billed for it. About 20% of our properties are owned by seniors who participated in the state's now ended property tax stabilization program. In essence, last year, the state paid the property tax increase of properties that participated in that program. This year, the tax increase of a property which participated in that program is going to be larger than one that didn't participate in the program, because in essence, those properties are getting 2 years worth of tax increases in 1 year, the one that the state paid last year plus this year's increase. The tax assessor has also adjusted the value on all properties based on sales data to strive to keep all assessments at fair market value to preserve Topsham's 100% reimbursement homestead tax exemption. If you have any questions about your assessment, feel free to contact our assessor. And that's all I got.
If I got a bill, can I send it back?
You could, but you might get lean.
Hey, Dawn.
Yeah.
One question about the 201 bridge. It's pretty bad there. Like, they're not doing anything to raise it up. They just straight up.
Don't know the exact plans, but I'll find that out. Dennis was at the meetings.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, next up, we have an update from the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. Susan Ray Reed.
You knew that I would need help.
Short people assist. Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, I'm pleased to update you on outreach and engagement since the board's May 2nd workshop and plans for the coming weeks. We were last here. In fact, the whole committee was here on May 2nd for the workshop. Thank you for devoting time to that. We had pretty good attendance, both online through Zoom and in the room. And we talk now about a few activities that were planned, that we talked then about plans to come, and now they've all happened. So first up was the May 22nd town meeting. We had a display smaller than the one here in the lobby, and some flyers. And we had conversations with several people that were substantive. So people at least had that exposure. We also then put that display up, thanks to both staff and the committee, in the lobby. And that went up the first week of June. And flyers have been revised to kind of update the information, and those are beside the display. Then on June 18th, we held a community forum right here in this room. There was outreach ahead of that to members of all town committees. And in addition to staff and interns, there were 17 other folks who took the time to come. It was in I think the early afternoon, not the best time for some people, but we still did get good attendance. We logged some very helpful feedback at that point, ranging from a few very positive general statements about the code they had folks saw about in this center growth area where we're using form-based code. And there was a few specific comments about changes that have been made in both the town center and the R3 zone. So it's all a work in progress, and through discussion with the planning staff, which has been terrific, and the planning board and consultants, we hope that we will achieve a finished product that will be presented through open houses later in the fall. I don't know if that's actually going to be plural, but there will be hopefully an open house, and we don't know exactly when. We hope later in the fall. Then we had 8 coffee with recode sessions. These were July and into August on, I think it was Tuesday and Thursday. Thursday's late open day here, and we had an early morning, and these are 2-hour sessions where there were opportunities for town residents to stop in, ask questions, look at the code specifically, or just, make general comments. I think we had about 10 people who stopped in. That's not a huge number, but from a few of those people, we got some very specific comments and suggestions. And all of those have now been logged in the online form created by planner Josh Franklin. The form is available on the town website, so people can, if people have any kind of question at all, it's possible to ask a general question, or it's possible to target a section of code and ask about that. It's obviously more helpful to us when you target a section of code and ask a question or make a comment. So where we are currently. So the revised code, which there are 15 articles in chapter 225. This is available for review on the town website. Now, we had thought that this draft, the first complete code presented for public review, would be the near final version, waiting only for feedback at the open house session. However, there were 2 important professionals who are taking the time to weigh in. One has finished his comments, and that's Tom Lister, enforcement officer, and the staff attorney will be looking at it. Since this was sent to all of you, we now have a date when the staff attorney is going to be making a workshop presentation to the planning board. That will be October 24th. I expect all of CPIC, most of us will be there, listening to what he has to say. Some of those items have been flagged by Tom Lister, but I can't commend Tom enough because he's gone through this code with a fine-tooth comb. And that's exactly what we needed. We want the final draft to be free of typos as well as any substantive problems. So, the other chapters, 225, those include 175, the site plan chapter, 185 is street standards, and 191 is the subdivision chapter. Those chapters all have relatively small changes. Some were made in the last town meeting by the town meeting to the subdivision 191. And there was vigorous questions and comments around that, I recall. So we hope that these chapters are going to be going through review in the planning board workshops. And we estimate, with the help of Director of Planning, that this may take 2 to 4 meetings. And at that point, the planning board expects to hold public hearings and present those chapters for the warrant later in the fall. You never know, sometimes things change, but that's what things look like right now. So in terms of what's next, when those chapters 175, 185, and 191 have moved through the pipeline, we will turn our attention to Article 2 of Chapter 225, the Topsham Center zones, and other articles as they relate to those new zones where form-based code is in effect. we've already had 2 planning board workshops on those Topsom Center zones. But these were preliminary. The draft code was not ready at that point for public review. But so we got some general feedback. I'm sure there'll be more like that, but hopefully there will be some that will be very targeted as well. So upcoming workshop sessions will be on the draft code once the round that it's mentioned above has been completed. And this shift in focus from the other material to the Topsom Center zones will hopefully happen toward the end of October or early November. Consultants will be involved there where needed. And once the workshopping has been completed, we'll hold the public hearing, after the initial edits have been made, so that there's a new draft for public review. One thing that's gotten a fair amount of feedback over the course of our office hours and community forums is retail parking. So in the mixed commercial zone, Topsom Fairmont, parking is meant to be on the side and the back, but not in the front. And obviously this has concerned some people, and some adjustments may be needed. TDI is supporting the development of an example site plan to kind of test things out and see how the code actually works, so that if some modifications need to be made to sort of address the needs of retailers, there will be time to do that. So, yeah, that's really it. If all goes well, chapter 225 will follow the course of the above 3 chapters. We'll go to public hearing and move on to the warrant with your approval. So hopefully I can answer any questions you have, but if I can't.
I have one question. Well, forgive me, what was the issue with parking? Was it that there was not enough, too much, or
No,
just congestion?
It's not about too much or not enough. It's really the way that form-based code generally lays things out is so that buildings are fairly close to the street, so that when you're walking along in a public space, you might have some setback and you might have some grass or a patio or something, but that the first thing you see, either driving or walking along, is not parking. Thinking, what's most attractive? People walking or driving along, not a parking lot. However, there are, needs in terms of retailers and where that needs to be tweaked to address the combination of creating an attractive public space, and at the same time creating workability for the
Thank you.
shoppers. Yeah.
We have the blessing of our new planners and landscape architect. So there may be a compromise, but it's kind of an example of get the parking up front, but it's beautiful landscaping.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a compromise there for some amount of parking to be up front, but if it's well landscaped, or so that's the kind of stuff that this workshop. We budget.
Right.
Cool.
Any
Yeah.
nothing?
So biggest thing that ever reads me about the entire problem is either working on this, every town that doesn't have form-based code is basically going to give a copy that's for free. After all the money and the time.
But Topsom will be famous.
This is true. Well done, Sue. This has been a long time coming in the end.
It is, yeah, and, I didn't say anything about this, but, the Rockland planning staff was down talking to folks and, towns are taking notice of what we're doing. And, I mean, for a long time, I think the whole idea of, shifting away from an entirely car-based economy, driving to the mall and helping to create some walkable, mixed-use neighborhoods where people could both, shop and live. What a concept. And run into each other. There's social opportunity there that's invaluable. So we're down with it. Others will be too, so I hope.
Did you, from these recent events you held or feedback?
Yeah.
Did anything new come up?
Oh, a good question.
Especially R3.
Well, there was a question in R3 in terms of, the not allowing solar, and it was simply an error. There was no change. And because there were some very, I wouldn't say small, there were a few substantive changes to the code in the area outside of the town center zones. But that was not the intention going in. It was mostly cleanup and update. But there were a few things made, but very few. One thing that surprised me was the first person who got up and said anything, said that he had looked at the draft code and particularly around the town center code, and he was a former planner. And he said he thought it looked great. He was very excited.
Was it Rod?
No. We're Topsham planner.
Gary Bob, Gary Bob. Yeah. Yeah, he and his wife came.
Sounds like everything was very productive, so
Yeah,
appreciate the update.
thank you. Should I turn this off? You'll get it. Running away. Thank you very much.
Okay, public comment. Okay,
Here I am. Hi. And I come tonight, number one, because I always like to be involved and I haven't been. I've had a very, very busy season. But thank the board for all the work they're doing. I know you're all good people and I appreciate that. I am concerned, of course, about taxes as everybody else is. And I think thus far, the manager and the board has done a good job because there are things beyond our control, like the state of what they did. And it's a shame that all of my street have called me because they got a heavy impact and they didn't understand. And they haven't understood that the funds that were left over, that the town used it to supplement to help bring down taxes. So I helped them some with that. So what I'd like to speak to the board about is, and I know you'll be responsible when the next budget comes up. And we don't have to expand a lot of things. Topsham is in a good position. We're in a good position for roads. We're good in a position for equipment, which we built over the last 15 years. Previous boards, the board that I was on and other boards, and they've done a great job with it. And I agree with setting money aside. But I think there could be a little bit of reprieve, and this is just a thought when the next budget comes up. And, also the community center. First, I was dead set against it. And I am against it if it takes tax dollars of any sorts. I think there are ways that we can do a community center with self-supporting and do many things to raise money and things like that. And I certainly would be very supportive of that. I think the committee has done a wonderful job and I think they're to be commended and they're all good people and they have the interest of heart. But also, how much more does Topsham need? How much more does Topsham need to expand in things? Because when you have these things, unless they're totally self-supporting, you have maintenance, you have staff, and when staff comes, so if you hire somebody for 50,000, in essence, you're paying them 80,000 at least for all the benefits. So let's say it depends on how big it is. There has to be 4 people. We multiply that out. And when we first started this, as Roland knows, and Matt and our manager, well, this first started conversation, it was supposed to be the seniors and maybe some daycare, maybe some recreation. Now out around, I'm hearing swimming pools, I'm hearing this, and I'm hearing that. So, and I know the board of selectmen will keep that all in mind. And that's why I came tonight. And I'm not opposed to it, and I would even help if it can be self-funded. And I don't even think personally that we should bond it. We don't know. We never can have a crystal ball to see where finances are going. But the way things are going right now, we've avoided a recession so far. So hope we continue and that people continue to work and have good jobs, but I'm just asking you to be cognizant, which you are. Just a little nudge here. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, correspondence. We did not receive anything. I think we got.
Anybody got the down?
Wasn't resident. Great confidence in. Adjustments to the agenda, we have none. Consent calendar. Approval of minutes of the regular select board meeting September 5th, 2024. Motion,
So moved.
second.
Second.
Moving second, all in favor? Let's see, public hearing, we have none tonight, unfinished business, nothing, old business, nothing. On to new business, 2475, consideration of any appropriate action to approve the street banner policy as as revised and presented.
Good evening. So we have a street banner. It's down on Lower Main Street. You've probably seen various things up there. It's in the area of dentist's office. And we had an issue come up back in August because a few days before the Topsham Fair said, we want to put a banner up. They called, the town doesn't put them up. Weltree usually is the one that doesn't. They called Weltree to try to get it up, and Weltree said it's already been, the Brunswick Downtown Group is using it for something. So then we ended up kind of in-house overruling the Brunswick Downtown Group to give it for the Topsham Fair, since it's our biggest event in Topsham. But it caused us to look at the policy, and we noticed the policy says it's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years, and it hadn't been reviewed since 2016. At the time that this issue, and the other thing that caused this was there was some hard feelings on the part of the Brunswick Downtown Group that they were upset they were bumped and things. So it costs us money to maintain that. A couple of years ago, we had to replace the guy wire that holds it up. That was $430. This year we paid $250 for poison ivy treatment that's broken up next to the sign. So our thought is that we need to update the policy. We've changed the fee from 15 to 30. So for putting something up, we also think to save the wear and tear on the sign when it doesn't have a Topsham event, that we propose limiting the Topsham events in the policy. And at the time, we've had a number of Brunswick events advertised on the Topsham sign this summer. And Brunswick's banner has been just saying, "Don't smoke on Main Street" or something like that. So we thought if it's a Brunswick event, it makes more sense to have it on the Brunswick sign and use the Topsham sign for Topsham events, or have no event and save the wind that's blowing the sign, and causing wear and tear on the poles and things. So you've got a red line policy that's got suggestions that Tom and I came up with to update the policy, and the changes are all in red. The other thing Tom wanted to avoid is a situation where sometimes someone tries to file multiple applications at once. So what we've added is you can't put an application for a subsequent event until your current display is down, banner's down. And then we've also got something that says, because we don't want someone to file like 2 years in advance to claim that maybe it's an event not as significant as something that comes up later. So we've got, it's on a first come, first served basis. But applications aren't going to be processed any earlier than 6 months before the event. And if it's competing applications for the same time period, the event with a larger expected attendance can be granted. So with that introduction, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good call this morning, Carabiner.
I have a question. So you can apply 6 months before, and so if someone's planning an event, they apply 6 months before. and then somebody else is having a bigger event and they're gonna trump you, they're gonna, you know, is that what you're saying? I mean, does that make sense to the person who scheduled the event?
Not if it's already been granted. So like, we're not gonna, someone put in an event now for a bean supper at a particular location next August. We're not gonna look at that until February. And by then, let's say Topsham Fair has now has their application in, that's gonna get 10,000 people sometimes a day versus the bean supper that'll have 250, so Topsham Fair wins. Now, if the bean supper gets their application in February and the bigger event doesn't turn it in until June,
But
then
once it's already been approved, they get.
exactly, the bean supper.
Makes sense to me, Mark.
Let's see.
I would move to approve the street banner policy. And
I would second that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Here. 476, consideration of any appropriate action to approve an amount. Excuse me. Allocated surplus to capital reserves.
So as you remember at your last meeting, you decided how much of the allocated surplus that you wanted to apply towards this year's taxes, which is the 2.3 million.
Yep.
So what happened after our last meeting is it was bothering me after the meeting, trying to figure out why, in the former town manager spreadsheets, he was using 18% as the number, the surplus he was trying to keep. In the paper policy that shown you at the last meeting came out of our policy book. I then searched one of our hard drives and I found that the policy had been amended in 2015 to the one that I provided you. So that the minimum is supposed to be 16.7%, which is of expenditures, which is basically 2 months worth of expenses. And the maximum is 18%. So if we apply those numbers to this year's budget, this year's expenditures, so the town and the county and everyone in the school, everyone have to pay, it's $31,191,276. If we apply the percentages to that, then under the current policy, the maximum that we could keep as unallocated fund balance is $2,609,707.32. The minimum that we could keep as unallocated fund balance is $3,015,193.91. So what would like you to do, yeah, it's in the memo too. So what we'd like to have you do tonight is tell us how much you would like to set aside to reserves, and if so, what reserves. The minimum we need to put in reserves is $309,707. The maximum we could put in reserves is $715,194. A reason maybe to do the minimum and not the maximum is if we put the maximum into reserves, then we basically have no available money, say next year, to help offset tax increase. So our recommendation to staff would be that we do the $309,707. We do the minimum. Nothing says that the money can't later be put in reserves if need be, or spent if need be for something, but you keep your options open more if you leave it in the unallocated surplus up to the 18%, as opposed to cutting it down to the 16.7%. And then as for a purpose for the 309,000, recommendation is to be set aside for Tedford Road improvements. I think as I've mentioned in prior meetings, we expected Tedford Road, when it was budgeted, to cost somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. Once Wright Pierce started doing their work, they found the soils were not firm enough. So they have to do a special type of fit for the project and special design. They're thinking now it's going to be about $1 million, maybe 1.1 for the project. We're going to have better numbers in a couple of weeks. So right now we have, in this year's current budget, we have $950,000 allocated to, was supposed to have paid for that project, as well as improvements to Pleasant Point Road and the improvements to the Forsyth Field, the sidewalk and guardrail and things. So we are going to need more money for the Tedford Road project. Ray Pierce is going to submit again this fall, to get some grant money. This will be the third time they've asked for that project, and the third time will be the charm, or we will have to beat our head against the wall for restructuring projects. We also have one of our TIFs, as we discussed last night, can be used to help fund Tedford Road, so that it has reserves of 114,000. So that would be another source of some money to help for it. But in any event, it's, it would be a useful purpose to have this money set aside to help pay for Tedford Road.
Before we have any discussion, I just want to point out that, Mark quickly approached me before this meeting to explain, suggest that we were both talking past each other. It made sense. So, I'm still not happy with the significant amount, but it is what it is. So, thank you for.
We also had a discussion about,
No, that's it.
just about showing over the course of the year what that balance is, and actually shows, and actually was put down quite a bit during the period. We have these major outlays at school, so it may look high at one point in the year, but better than the rest of the year, so it all evens out. I think we saw the sustain, that balance being sustained, and conversation. Use it as a,
Well, we already blew $814,000 since the last meeting, right?
So at the last meeting, you voted to carry over basically money allocated in private budgets that hadn't been spent yet, 1.481 million. Today I ran the report to see how much of that we spent since July 1st, and we spent 814,000 of it. The street sweeper that we ordered last year that came in July was 284,000 alone. The portion that was carried over for paving was 246,000. We've already spent 365,000 since July 1st, which, and the rest of the paving money. Well, we had a meeting with Perkers back in the spring, and we said, want to get this backlog cleared up. Can you help us do this? If not, will you kind of give us the blessing to get some folks from other companies? And they said, we can get it done. Just let us work with you. So, and they've been true to their word. So
Why do we need Perkins' permission to get quotes from other people?
Dennis was trying to get quotes from other companies, and they said, oh no, you're in Perkers area. Whether it's because the pavements, the asphalt is further, and so it's hard to do it effectively, I don't know.
That's like the cable company for crying out loud. Jeez.
But Perkers has been great about working with Dennis, and we should be all caught up by June, and we don't expect to need to carry paving money into next year from prior year.
So I just wanted to ask a question. So are we suggesting that maybe we stick to the 16.7%, use the difference for the Tedford Road project? Is that what you're suggesting, that we would actually allocate that money?
I'm suggesting that we stick with the 18%.
Okay,
And then take that 309,000 beyond that, set that in a reserve for Tedford Road improvements.
and we'll use it all because we're about 400,000 behind, right?
Although we'll first use the money in the current budget, because that, if we don't need to use this, it can go to something else.
Oh.
Another reserve for.
nonetheless, we're going to stick with our 2.3 commitment to this year's budget.
Yeah, that's already, in fact, the tax bill based on that, so that's all done. So in essence, if you get asked questions, I mean, next year, we're not gonna have 2.3 million to, unless something happens, and we lose a bunch of staff or something. Like a bunch, maybe half our staff, but we don't have the positions.
Nothing like that.
I mean, this year, we only, we finished with about $1 million more at the end of the year. Half of that was from money that we didn't expend. And it wasn't in public safety. All of public safety, we only finished the year 26,000 in the black.
That's right.
I was worried we were gonna be in the red, because, and then we'd have to have a special town meeting, which would be fun. So it was, public safety was a little too close to call. So we had about 500,000 expenses that we didn't spend. And then we had about 500,000 extra revenue, but half of that was just because unexpectedly interest rates finally went up on savings. So we ended up, I think Kathy had budgeted something like 31,000 in interest, and we got over 300,000 in interest. So we had a couple, but we're not going to have 2.3 million surplus next year. We may not even have 1 million. So, if we follow policy. So I think to keep the 400,000, to set it at the 18, knowing we were 400,000 above our minimum, gives us a little bit of cushion if we need to use something next year to help offset taxes. And again, it can always be used for another purpose if you want later.
So this doesn't always shake out in budget presentations or even budgets. But clearly inflation is taken into account when planning for like it from the budget or something. I would say, curious what might have been used in January of this year, because that I think would again lead to a pretty decent surplus if we use like, 5%. It's a base. I know it doesn't, it's not a direct piece of the equation, but
What number are you talking about?
inflation.
Oh, we actually, more so than inflation, used the prior year's expenses.
Yeah.
And if it looks like we did okay in the prior year, we left, Derek was pretty strict on the expenses. In fact, there's some things like I'm already a little concerned about. It's like we could be having a number of HVAC issues.
Just the very kind of
No, I think he was doing his best for the taxpayers, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there's gonna be some areas I think we're probably gonna end up already over in some of the HVAC stuff. Repairs.
Then we're at some HVAC, was it?
And our stuff's getting older and things.
Yeah, seriously. I just didn't know how much of a role it played, because I know the county budget, we frequently get, well, inflation. Reasons why things increase, and you see it does have an impact, and you have to take into account your planning. I think Dennis actually said that once. But it was so. I don't remember.
Fuel,
Yeah, it was fuel. But yeah, I mean, regardless, it's not different. It is what it is.
And we're definitely better off having a little extra than a little less.
Yeah. Right.
Needs to be more budget or better plan.
Looked at fuel, but so. I haven't heard of an issue. But
It's been trending down, it's actually,
yeah.
the January supplies.
Mr. Tufts, when we, finish 2476, I'd like to add another item to the agenda. Dan? Well, we passed it, but I didn't know if I could do it. I asked the chair. You want to know that?
Yeah.
I want to know if we can do something about this system, because it's blurry, it's not recording well when you listen to it, it's all. And I didn't know if we needed to update this system.
What we used to do, is we had a paid employee who would sit downstairs and use our in-house TV system. We could go back to that. But we wouldn't have as many things televised because there's a lot of our meetings that, because it costs us $9,000 for that. And then Jeff and I and Sky and everyone knows how to operate it. So we can do the CPIC meetings or something. We can record them and put them online. It would be a big hit on the budget this room isn't always available, so we have two meetings at once.
Well, maybe it's just this device needs to be replaced.
I think it's just the technology.
It's the technology.
I think the hours are right.
Well, yeah, I put the owl to bed. I noticed that like just in the middle is blurry, so I don't know if it means to where the cameras are. Where are the cameras in this room?
The camera is on that little black thing on the top, and Jeff's actually cleaned it, a couple weeks ago, thinking he could clear that up.
But it did.
So I think it's just, now maybe,
You're still blurry.
well, some of it is under witness protection. Maybe there's something that for $5,000, we can look at that. Maybe there's a more expensive version we could buy that would be clear or something.
Just something to think about.
The biggest audio reason is people not using the mic or the voices. Like my voice carries well, so I could not even use the microphone, and that picks me up. There's other people's voices, they don't carry that well. If they don't use the microphone, it doesn't pick you up.
Right.
But even with our old system, I remember watching planning board videos before we did this, and I couldn't understand I was trying to listen to what people were saying. So.
It was just something, I mean, we're supposed to be recording and keeping records of all of these meetings, and if they're not if you can't understand them, that kind of defeats the purpose.
We're not obligated to make audio video recordings, we're obligated to keep some.
Just minutes?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
minutes.
I thought we were required to record.
No,
That was Derek's son. He was
it was the last employee, yeah, but remember Allison Harris? She was the Brunswick Town Council and she's an active with Topsham Club. Her husband Bernie was doing it before. Derek's son, but it's hard to find someone that wants to come spend Thursday nights.
Sitting in the center.
Yeah.
Sit in the-
I mean, believe it or not, I agree that this could be better than it is, but I think it's better than what we had. Because we used to pay more money and get more recordings. And we had, pretty much just planning board and select board, and now we've got, multiple meetings that are getting recorded, and as you can tell by our YouTube channel.
As long as Patty doesn't screw up, good. So I'd like to propose a motion if I could.
Please, that'd be great.
I move to transfer $715,000 from in surplus to capital reserves for, yeah, I guess Tedford Road. Or for 18.7%.
Emergency circumstance.
Oh, you want to go to 16.7,
No,
but then it's 300.
I didn't get the amount.
Okay, so if you want to go to the 16.7, it's 715,190.
oh, 194.
What's the number again?
Um,
That we're voting on?
to go to the minimum, it's $715,194.
Going to the maximum.
Yeah.
We want, he wants to go the maximum.
If you want to go to the maximum, so keep the reserves at 18%, so there's money for next year's tax year, if needed, that would be 309,707.
That's the number.
Yes.
309,707.
You got 310 on here. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All
All right, so I'd like to rescind that motion if I could, Patty.
I didn't do it.
Oh.
She's just putting it, yeah, do it again.
Okay, so I move to transfer $310.
We don't have to.
310 is fine.
From an allocated surplus to capital reserves, to maintain, maximum 18% of TA.
I have a motion. So,
I will second that.
okay. Moving second, all in favor of the motion.
Can I ask you?
Oh, yeah,
Did you want to also say it's for the Tedford Road?
sure,
That's part of that.
for Tedford Road.
So a motion, second.
Yeah.
All in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
Then what discussion? All right, we are now moving into executive session. Vote item 2477. To enter into executive session pursuant to 1 NRSA section 405(6)(c). Discuss acquisition of interest in real property. That motion.
I make a motion to go into closed session to discuss the acquisition of interest in real property.
Second.
Moved and seconded, favor. We're in executive session.